Fascism, racism, xenophobia, discrimination, and Islamophobia. These words are littered all around the internet, and since we are the generation of high digital literacy, I'm sure we've heard or even used these words at least once. Even in this modern age, satirical racism is used as a form of humor and amusement. However, we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about xenophobia and right-wing extremism in Australia. My group and I will be presenting our compiled information in the form of a scrapbook. Before we get into the topic, I first want to define the words xenophobia and right-wing extremism. We're going to be defining right-wing extremism first. The word right-wing derives from the idea of political spectrums. According to Britannica, political spectrum, a model for classifying political actors, parties, or ideologies along one or more axes that compare them. We can represent political spectrums with two opposite ends, the left and the right. Each end represents a group of ideologies and beliefs. People on opposite ends tend to oppose each other. Most of these principles are about the best way to manage society in order for it to flourish. An example of how different these two sides would be, I'm going to give a very popular example. Progressive versus conservative. The left being conservative. Those on the left tend to adopt a more progressive view, meaning they often favor social change or reform. A typical example is supporting same-sex marriage. Those on the right would be the conservatives. Those on the right tend to uphold more traditional views. A typical example is being in favor of the monarchy. In the axis above, you can see the far right being defined as reactionary. What is reactionary? Being reactionary is opposing change and social reform in terms of a political, social, or economic environment. The more progressive the change is going to be, the more extreme the reaction is going to be. Far-right extremism in Australia manifests itself into white extremist groups, neo-Nazi ideologies, and more. Now going to the second idea in the title, xenophobia. Xenophobia is the fear or hatred towards people from different cultures, often resulting in prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism. It can intersect with racism, which believes one race is superior. Both terms are very closely related, meaning an action, policy, or person may be defined as racism and xenophobia due to how closely related both terms are. A form of xenophobia and right-wing extremism in Australia, like I said, is white extremist groups. Australia has a history of implementing white Australia policies in the 20th century, aiming to maintain a white Australia by preventing immigration from non-European countries. They aim for an Australia with no immigrants, no color, no ethnic diversity. They want a traditional Christian white ethno-state. Extremist groups like White Army, Australia First Movement, Reclaim Australia, United Patriots Front, and the National Socialist Party of Australia share beliefs with Nazi doctrine, making them neo-Nazi movements. While xenophobia and right-wing extremism manifest themselves through social means such as protests, online hate, and hate speech, a major violent attack happens solely for the reason because of hating the other. On March 15, 2019, at a Christchurch mosque, New Zealand, an individual attacked two mosques during Friday prayer, causing harm to many and resulting in the loss of lives. Sometimes the intention of terrorist attacks aren't so clear. The Christchurch mass shooting is by far one of the clearest examples of Islamophobic violence, an attack with a death toll of 51 people and over 40 more injured, the motive of which was written by the terrorist himself in the manifesto published prior to the attack. A manifesto filled with far-right white supremacist beliefs. One of the worst aspects of it, the whole thing was live-streamed on Facebook by the shooter mimicking the style of a first-person shooting game. Now to the solution. With all this information presented, I present a solution. The difficult thing about treating xenophobia and far-right extremism is because these movements are reactionary. Reactionary movements are by nature always opposed to change. The first strategy is to make sure these movements don't grow into membership. It is extremely difficult to turn a neo-Nazi normal. The mindset developed by these neo-Nazis or right-wing extremists is a result of accumulation of years of exposure to the subject. It is much easier to stop a normal person from ever turning into a neo-Nazi. Policies regarding education and increasing multiculturalism will help with this strategy to prevent new people from joining the movement. The problem with the first strategy is that already neo-Nazis becoming even more extreme. They inherently want to fight change, so by changing stuff they get worse. This is why neo-Nazis protests and rallies occur right after progressive changes. Sadly, I cannot provide a more creative response because this topic is a very hard one to tackle. I hope you fully understand the compiled information and you have a more in-depth understanding of the topic. Thank you for watching.